Hi, I'm Lisa Jones, and I'm a former certified public accountant for PricewaterhouseCoopers Ernst & Young. I also have had a shared death experience that changed my life, and I'm really excited to share that with you. So, on February 22, 2004, my husband passed away after a long illness. He had been sick for 7 years and he had lymphoma cancer. He was actually 44 when he passed away. The night that it happened, he had been called that day because up until then, he didn't even believe he was really dying. However, he was incoherent that morning, so I called his doctor. They said, "Let's send hospice over," and they actually evaluated him. They said that it would probably be at least 2 to 3 weeks before he passed. He was not looking imminent in any way. I called his brother and best friend and they came over. It was the first time I really wasn't alone in the house with him. At this point, we had 2 young children. They were 1 and 3 when he was diagnosed, and 8 and 10 when he died. After hospice came, my kids ended up leaving the house that night. My son went to Ian's mother's house and my daughter went to her best friend's. I went and took care of Ian that evening. It was actually the first time he had been given any pain medication or anything. I just kissed him on the head and said, "Good night." Then his brother came into the room to take care of him, so I went and slept on my daughter's bed. Before I fell asleep, I prayed to the angels and just said, "Please help us, there's no way out at this point." I fell asleep, and that's when basically 2 angels just came and escorted my soul out of my body and took me to the other side, to what I call heaven. It was the most beautiful place I have ever been. There were rolling, gorgeous hills and colors I've never seen. The colors in heaven, and again, it's so hard to articulate because I feel like we don't even have words to express them, were so dynamic and so multidimensional. I mean, it's unlike, again, I almost feel like here on planet Earth we live in this kind of flat Stanley. I don't know if you've ever heard of people singing around this little flat Stanley doll, taking it on their vacation or whatever, and taking photos with it. That's kind of what I feel like. Here on Earth, it's like we're living in this flat Stanley world where the colors are just saturated, but there's no light in the colors here. Then there is just such a wider range of colors, and like I said, there are no words to even express what they are because we don't have them here. Then, in the distance, there was this beautiful castle-like structure. The next thing I know, we were inside of it, and all of a sudden I could hear a choir singing. There were just all these banners in all the corridors, and there was an announcement. "The Grand Mr. Ian Sharp is about to arrive." As I was approaching down this corridor, it led to the end of this balcony. I could look down and saw all these souls coming together, and I can't describe what they really looked like, other than I just knew it was Ian's soul family and that they were so excited. They're like, "Oh my gosh, he's coming, he's coming, he's almost here, he's almost here." Then, all of a sudden, there was this giant door that started to open. You could almost hear it scraping on the ground, and just like that, everybody turned, all the souls at the same time. "He's here." Just at that moment he started to walk through, and I saw him. The amount of unconditional love and peace I felt was overwhelming. I thought, I never want to leave this place, it's just so amazing. Then, right at that moment, there was a knock on my door. "Lisa, wake up, wake up." Ian just took his last breath. It was his brother waking me up to let me know. At that moment, it was like a trap door opened in heaven, and my soul fell back into my body. I remember just this thud back into my physical body, and I bounced out of bed, was so actually excited because I saw where he was going. Yet, I knew that just that was not an appropriate response in that moment because my husband just died. I had all this excited feeling, and to top it off, I thought he was going to be going to hell because he hadn't been baptized. I was very religious, and I believed that, because he was unwilling to be baptized, he literally was going to go to hell. So that made it even more exciting to me that he got to go to heaven. And so, I ran down to our bedroom. His body was laying there, but it wasn't him. It was just almost like a shell. I could just see that, his soul was gone, and that he had gone to heaven, and I got to witness that. I have never heard of a shared death experience. I didn't know for years after that until I just randomly read a near-death experience book that talked about near-death experiences. I was like, oh my God, that's what I experienced. I wasn't dead. I didn't have a near-death experience, but it was also similar. like the colors, the unconditional love, and just the excitement and beauty. The cleanliness, that was the biggest thing, was just how clean it is here, in that heavenly realm versus here. Only recently, after I moved to Maui and got involved with the international studies of near-death experiences, did I meet a man who wrote a book about shared death experiences. That's when I started hearing that they're now starting to study shared death experiences. I was raised Lutheran, and in fact it was actually kind of traumatic because I was in a parish where our youth minister ended up molesting a lot of the girls in my confirmation class. It's so interesting because actually this leads back to my near-death experience. When he took me to the basement, I knew something was going to happen, and so I had the sense to get out before anything did happen. I attribute that to the fact that I recently found out that I had a near-death experience when I was 2 weeks old, and this was through a guided meditation. Again, it was just so interesting because I was on a guided meditation, not thinking anything of where it was going to take me. But the next thing I know, I remember being born. I was adopted as a baby, and so after I was taken from my birth mother, I was just in a room for 2 weeks, basically, where caregivers would come and feed me and take care of me. But I also had colic, so I was crying a lot, and they were having a really hard time consoling me. What I saw in this guided meditation is that one of the caregivers picked me up and shook me. I was like, okay, not only was I taken from my mother, but I don't have a consistent caregiver, and I'm really uncomfortable in my body. So I just popped out of my body, and I'm like, I'm out of here. In this guided meditation, I witnessed again being in heaven. I was just surrounded by all these beautiful angels. This is going to again bring me to tears because they just lovingly said, you have work to do on earth and you need to go back. So I reluctantly went back into my body. It was a few days later when my adopted parents picked me up or got me or whatever. I had the most loving mother that was just so. I even told her as a 4-year-old, this was God's plan. You couldn't have babies, but another mommy had to have me so that I could be your baby. Because of that near-death experience, it makes so much sense because as a child I saw energies. I saw cowboys and Indians outside my windows at night. I felt aliens come and put medicine in my mouth and poke my toes with needles when I was a little babe, like a little child. My mum and dad, of course, didn't believe me, but now that I know about near-death experiences and what happens after you have one, that you do have these 6 senses, really elevated, that makes sense to me. Why then, when I went down to the basement with my minister, I knew that something bad was going to happen. And then, when he confessed to doing this to girls, I stepped away from my religion at that point. But then, when I got married and had kids, I felt like they really needed that foundation, so I became Episcopalian. Again, I was totally in belief of all the rules that the church said you have to be baptized, and that there's heaven and hell and all of this. Interestingly, when I went through the Episcopal Church and my husband was dying, I went for counseling, and again, the minister tried to hit on me. So between the 2 ministers that were, men, that's what I realize now, that religion is it's like an organization where men come to power, generally men, and then sometimes take advantage of women. So between that and then having my own connection with that shared death experience, I'm like, I don't need this anymore. I stepped away from the church, I walked away. And I really believe that a lot of that is just for control, and a lot of times manipulation of other people. So, I am not a fan of organized religion any longer. When people go to the other side, they actually get to witness what they think their heaven is. Because I do think it would be jarring if I had gone to the other side and I was in a Buddhist temple or, like a mosque or something like that. So I do believe, and again, I've interviewed a lot of near-death experiences, and it seems to me that most people witness what it is that they are kind of anticipating. I don't believe in death. I think we just transition into another realm. So a lot of times, whatever your current belief is, you just step right through the threshold, and you're in the next realm with that same belief system, with that same, and then it might unfold from there. But I think when you're first walked through, or, again, all the people I've interviewed, it just seems like that's a great way to welcome them in. Rather than having it be, I am not afraid of death. I am in fact looking forward to seeing how this all ends because I've witnessed so many different, deaths throughout my life. As I'm a hospice volunteer and a death doula, in fact, a few years ago, after moving to Maui, I was just sitting on, it was like a Saturday morning, with my phone, just looking at it. All of a sudden, I get an alert saying, "Incoming missile from North Korea. This is not a test. This is actually happening. Take cover." I'm thinking, oh my God, I had no idea this is how it was going to end. I'm actually really excited. I was ready to get in my car and go to the beach and say, "Bring it on," because if I'm going to go that way, I want to go quick. I don't want to have the radiation poisoning or whatever after the fact. Meanwhile, I know all the islands people were driving off the road and freaking out about the whole thing. But I've really, again, from interviewing near-death experiencers, every one of them says that before impact in a car accident, or if they were falling or freezing to death or whatever their circumstances were, their soul pops out before the impact. So they don't feel the pain, they don't experience that. And so I trust that that'll happen with me too. Am I doing the work that I'm here to do? I feel like I'm leaning in closer and closer. Part of it is literally sharing my experiences with people, just to help them. Whatever they're going through, a lot of times I get feedback from people that it really helps to know that these stories exist and can help them. So I'm leaning into being an eternal love and abundance coach, which is helping people as they are on their journey here on Earth. If that's connecting with their passed away loved ones, if it's, figuring out why they're stuck in life. I've had so many experiences through these shared death experiences and talking about near-death experiences and cultivating relationships on the other side. I call him my heavenly husband. He's been helping me for 20 years and he talks to me, he guides me, he helps me. My mom is the same way. Ram Das, who's a spiritual leader here on Maui, I had a shared death experience with him, and he's guiding me at all times. So I am here to now help people literally connect with their loved ones and cultivate that relationship. So it's not over when they die, it's just a new experience of a relationship with their soul, and it's super exciting. It's super fun, and, I feel like I'm on my path. We are all falling when the love is in our eyes, staring, lost about the skylight. We all fall in when the love is in our eyes.